Welcome back to the Wise Ones episode 8. Guys, today we're sitting down with Dotta, and if you don't know the name yet, you definitely will. This is the developer who wrote one of the reference implementations of ERC 721s back in 2017. He built Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult into one of the most respected NFT projects of the entire cycle, and now he's behind Paperclip, an open source AI agent orchestration system that crossed 50K GitHub stars in only a month. To put that into perspective, almost nothing in open source moves that fast, but we've been tracking Paperclip since day one on March 4th, and we can tell you this isn't a conversation from the outside looking in. Our entire community runs Paperclip every single day. We know the product, we know the workflows, we know the agent prompts, and we know Dotta's history in crypto because we actually lived through it. Guys, this is the most in-depth conversation on Paperclip and on Dotta that exists to date. Let's get straight into it.
All right, Dot. Well, so happy that you're here. It's been a long time coming. We were really excited to talk to you because we've been following your project since March 4th, and
Yeah,
we've been watching the interviews. We've been kind of like using the product. A lot of our guys are actually using the product. But
cool.
you mentioned something that's very interesting. You talked about how like AI was created through your AI anxiety. You said that Paperclip was kind of born out of that. You're about a month in now. You know your GitHub stars are at like such a very high level. What does that anxiety actually feel like right now? Like
Mhm.
watching Paperclip take off, like literally leave this planet, but also watching other labs ship features that are overlapping what you're building.
Yeah. Okay, so there's two pieces there. One would be just like AI anxiety in general, and then I don't know, let's call it competition. Um, so I guess what I would say is, yeah, Paperclip was born out of this idea that like maybe a bit of an identity crisis was a piece of it around like what's left with programming, like what's left to do in work really at all now that AI is getting so good, right? So I like a lot of programmers, I think over the past year, I started to feel a lot of like anxiety and almost like an identity crisis over that because um like I spent so many nights and weekends learning how to be really good at coding, and now just like that AI can do it better than I can. And I also think that like if you're sort of paying attention, it's not just programming jobs that are going this way. It's really like everything that kind of happens on a computer they're going to go through this exact same sort of stress, right? That like you realize like once kind of the models take another step or two, which they surely will, once the evals and the sort of training takes another step, you're basically going to see like any job that is a computer job go the way of programming, which is like the job that you think you had is not really the job that you actually have anymore. That job is kind of gone. Like, and this really happened in like I would say October, November, where all of the programmers sort of felt that like coding by hand was solved. You saw, everyone from Linus Torvalds all on down just saying like buying in. The last holdouts kind of fell around last fall, so maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Um, and okay, so this question is really like what's left, and there's really only like one kind of um, paper that I read that really gave the silver lining. It's this paper by Christian Catalini, and he basically says like it's a really interesting paper. It talks about like sort of what's left in the economy after AI does all the work, and he says what's left for humans is your taste and your judgment and your accountability. It's this idea around you're almost like taking liability for the output that these agents do, because these agents, they can do anything but know your values. Like yes, if you specify exactly to them what you want them to do, they can do it, but they don't have the greatest judgment or taste right now. And there's a certain aspect in which you're always going to have to teach them to do what you want. And so it's your own taste, and then your own sort of like willing to say I'm liable for this output that is the job now. I think it's still going to be a hard transition for a lot of people, because people like myself, like I was more used to kind of the puzzle, the problem solving, like the debugging, like learning, having the secret knowledge that other people didn't have. Like there was a piece of the job that actually did go away, but on the other hand, now you're able to focus a bit more on kind of like the output, the production, like what are you actually responsible to do. Um, and well, I think that's really exciting because you're able to sort of move a lot faster.
You mentioned I've seen you mention this a couple of times about the last taste being the human mode, and AI can literally do everything except know its value, right? And
Mhm.
I love that framing, but I also get like into like deep thought, right? Because if you can export my taste and someone can export it, like that's the most powerful thing ever. But does it also cause a new problem at the same time?
Yeah, right. You see this with AI image generation, that like you have sort of Studio Ghibli, for example, as this like in the 80s they are like hand painting with watercolors like every refraction of a river, so you can see like a bottle and the bottle has dirt on it in the like, and it's this like incredible taste that almost no one is able to even replicate. And then that's like the first style that anyone ever wants to try in AI image generation. And now you can put sort of like your own face in the Studio Ghibli situation. And so what happens is the market kind of becomes saturated with Studio Ghibli, style images, and we all just get sort of bored and kind of move on. And so the you know the bar gets sort of moved up to, okay, well, like where's the boundary? Like if you're an artist now, where is the boundary for how you create new art? And like what does it take to have a piece of artwork that you see that like, oh, AI couldn't have made this? Because there is an aspect of AI in which like, especially the current models are they require quite a lot of training data. And so there's this like constant pull back toward the average, towards the median, toward the mediocre. You see that already with any kind of default image generation. You see that with any default like text generation, is it's just absolutely mediocre. Um, I think they'll get better. But it doesn't matter, because even like as AI gets better, our tastes will shift, because we humans are always looking for like signal, proof of work, like something new, something novel. Like we becomes kind of so saturated with like whatever AI can do today, we're looking for something that it can't do. So I mean, you kind of have this it's exhausting, but it's not like we'll ever stop wanting more.
Yeah, I was reading this article. It talked about AI amnesia, is what it's called, where basically people forget literally like a week ago or 2 weeks ago what it couldn't do and what it could do now because it's increasing so fast.
Mhm.
And people like just kind of forget like how far we've actually come, because we've come very far to the point where what you're building. I mean, one human system where pretty much can run $1 billion company, and it's all orchestrated in a perfect, nice, and neat way. Now, you building this, did you have the builder in mind the whole time? Like, man, what about that guy that just wants to do it on his own, has a great idea, but doesn't want to get started because he needs this employee or that employee? And because the moment you start thinking about an idea, you think about the work that it actually is going to take to get that done, or the money, I should say, for sure, or the money that it's going to take to get that done. You kind of get beat down a little bit, like, "Oh, this can never come true." Now dreams can come true with something like a paperclip.
Yeah, I built Paperclip. Like my thesis and theory of Paperclip is like, even if nobody else uses it, if it works, I'll just use it to run companies and make money from those. Like even if nobody else touches it, if we like never get any customers or like, which I don't think will be the case, but it will be useful to me. The best proof that Paperclip works is that like I am running um you know 100 million billion-dollar companies from Paperclip, because like the software actually works. That's what you'll have when you'll know Paperclip works, when like I'm just running my own companies from it. Um, so I think like there's a lot. I have just I have new ideas every day on businesses that I want to build. I kind of like I always have like 20 side projects that are on the side, and for me, I have a lot of fun kind of building the initial version, and then I sort of get bogged down when it comes time on like say distribution, for example, or marketing it. And I think that's a problem that I'm actually trying to correct with Paperclip, but um the 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 thing with Paperclip is I'm trying to build out all of the pieces for where I have a clear idea that I know it can be automated. So for example, when we hit 40,000 GitHub stars, that video that you see on my tweet was entirely created by Paperclip. I basically had a paragraph where I asked my CEO to hire a video editor and to give her the remotion skill, and then ask her to make a video around 40,000 GitHub stars. And because in Paperclip we already knew the stats, we already had access to it, we already had the branding guide, all of this like sort of institutional knowledge was within Paperclip. It was able to sort of create that video within a couple of minutes. And then, but it wasn't perfect the first time. I actually did have to sort of give feedback and kind of ask for edits there. But the thing is with Paperclip, you'll be able to kind of go back and look over, okay, here's the last 10 videos that we did. Like, what are the pieces that I always had to tell you to change? And now we can like learn from that. So that way each video, like, it becomes progressively easier and easier. And so like it's so clear to me that these models are far more capable of than our tools are actually letting us do. Even the models today, the public models that we have, um, are extremely powerful, but you didn't have kind of the harness tools to get them to coordinate with one another, to check on one another, to like imbue your taste. And so, yeah, I think that for Paperclip, the plan is, when you say, did you build it for kind of individual builders? Yes, the plan is that I would say that actually Paperclip isn't easy enough to use right now. I have like, we need to do a desktop app where you can just like run it and on your computer, and that'll be like open source and free. We need to do like Paperclip Cloud, where if you don't want to run your agents yourself, or if you want to have a small team, you can like sign up for Paperclip Cloud and run it there. And I think like and if you run like a bigger company and you have a larger team and bigger security requirements and sort of you need to orchestrate a lot of agents, we'll have a version for a Paperclip for that too. But let me talk about like the individual builder first. I think one of the interesting things we're seeing with Paperclip is that there are a lot of people who maybe aren't traditionally like tech guys who are using Paperclip to help their business. So like almost this like borderline like blue collar or like entrepreneurial guys who are already using Claude for, let's say, their marketing or for some of their back office stuff. Like I have a friend who runs like a painting company, or I have another friend who like has like a roofing company, and they're already using Claude to um, help them with their business, because they're smart guys. They can clearly see like, oh, I need like a bit of back office automation. I can see that this can help me like craft ads just for my neighborhood or what have you. And so they're already like kind of, we're seeing people sort of play with Paperclip. There's a guy that using Paperclip to manage his like Tesla rental business, and people who have like small marketing firms. And so there's this sort of like long tail of people who are already using AI for their work, and they'll be like, oh, I had like a bunch of Claude tabs open in Cowork, or I've got my folder of prompt text files, in Google Docs or something, and they're copying and pasting all the time. These people like already see just how useful Paperclip can be to them, but I also think that like a lot of what we have is still like too difficult. Like you still have to type a terminal command line to launch it, and that's like wrong. Like it needs to be. There's so much that we can do on the usability side that we're working on.
Hey, from a person who comes from like a traditional business background, I've built businesses myself. I think I'm probably in that scope. And I'll be honest, like, even within Wiseman, like we have our own, systems and things that we've needed to build out. And I'll be honest, brother, Paperclip has been a massive tool. And we've integrated it deeply. I've integrated it deeply into our workflow,
Cool.
and it's working really, really well. I think for any general purpose kind of like user who's already using AI, it could be really they could find it to be really simple. And if they don't, over time it just gets easier, because it's like you said, these models are becoming so intelligent, and then they'll just work through the problems with you. But I think that's a great feat. To make it simpler is definitely the goal. What I wanted to really hit on with you was, like one of the things that I found interesting about the entire architecture of this system is like, it's like the choice to organize agents in like an organizational chart, right? Like your CEOs, your CTOs, to your engineers. I really get the human metaphor, but AI doesn't really have the same cognitive limits that we do, right? Like, how do you land on that structure versus something where like agents can just like work in parallel? How'd that come about?
I think that there's a few things. Um, so for the product level, I would say that, the default right now in Paperclip is that you get a CEO because it's like, the headline was zero human businesses. I think that where we're starting to see Paperclip is really useful for when you're a human and you need to create work you're accountable for at agentic speed. And what that means a lot of times is that it's not that you have like a whole business or a CEO, but rather you're kind of interfacing with the department. And many people are trying to like bring Paperclip into um their work. And so we need to have sort of better analogies, I suppose, for them, that like it's not that you're running a whole company, but it's that you're managing a team of agents for your job. There's
Yeah,
this
totally. Hmm.
there's this other question which you're alluding to, which is like, well, do agents need a human hierarchy? And I think the question is like, it's not really clear. But I would say let me give you some of the ideas that I'm thinking about, which would be, we like humans need a human face. So even if it's just the same model under the hood wearing different masks, it's still helpful to us to interface with like different personas. The other thing is that for yeah, so one would be like, we need a human face. Another would be, the models themselves are kind of finite at the moment. They don't have kind of infinite context to always know everything all the time. And maybe that will be fixed in the next couple of years. We'll get models with infinite context. And um, the other thing would be like, but for now, you have to kind of do this context management. So it's better to have your CTO have different context than your video editor. The other part would be like that the world is already human shaped. Like this is part of the thesis between like, let's say, Tesla's Optimus robot, which is the world is already human shaped. So make a human robot, because then it will exist with it can work with all of the existing infrastructure, right? Maybe you could create a custom robot that can flip hamburgers faster or make burgers faster, but it won't be as sort of like adaptable to everything that you need to do in the world. And for now, humans are living here. And so a human shape of Paperclip helps humans interact with it while we're in this kind of like collaborative phase of work. And I think, you know, we can talk about what happens after that, but I think a fourth part might be that like maybe human organizations are shaped the way they are because there's something fundamental about the world that like requires sort of different entities with different strengths and weaknesses. Like that might not just be a property of human organizations, but like a property almost of nature. And you in an organizational context, you can think about the competing interests between like sales and like security teams or something, right? Like where sales wants to make the sale and launch all these features, and then product is like, no, we don't want to add those features, and sales is like, well, tough luck, we already sold it. And so like you need this kind of like architecture to maybe like resolve those kinds of conflicts. Like does it make sense that you're just going to have like one super claw that like runs your entire business? Like maybe, but maybe not. And so yeah, I do think that like my biggest kind of concern around Paperclip would be something like that the models themselves um, are so good that you don't need any kind of orchestration software at all. That like they kind of act as an employee. They use Google Docs, they use GitHub, they use Cursor, all on their own, and you don't even need to like cost tracking. They literally just you just send them a paycheck. They just send you an invoice, and they just do the work as an employee. You just pay whatever per month for this virtual employee, and it's good enough. And I think like pretty soon after that works and they can do all the work of a virtual employee, they probably won't keep using Cursor and GitHub and Google Docs. They'll build their own like agent versions. They'll build like you know, whatever agent GitHub Swarm. And then from there, like they just are off. They're doing all the work themselves, and you've reached the singularity, right? Like, so I think that Paperclip is useful for kind of every point along that curve before that happens, where you still have kind of humans interacting with agents and humans who are responsible for managing agents and they're accountable for their work. I think Paperclip will or something like it will be kind of required and useful.
I think that every once in a while something happens in the space where, the space makes a big leap forward. And I think this is one of those situations. I'll be honest, like, I have this saying, it's, the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack, right?
Yeah.
And I think that with something like this tool, it ultimately does it does need that structure. I'm very happy that it's set up the way that it is because, right now, the agents almost perform at the level that I perform. So if I get better, they get better. The more I know, the more that they get to know. So I think the human element is still very much needed because it does set them to think in certain ways. You can't just leave it all up to them, right? They need that guidance. And so the idea of giving them souls, the idea of giving them the goals, the MD files, like I think Paperclip does a very, very good job of that, which is why I feel like I've had so much success with the product and so many people are really liking it. With something I wanted to share with you was that recently we started this system where we do a roundtable with our agents. So every morning at 7 a.m. and at 7 p.m. there's a roundtable that goes on, and everybody shares for 5 rounds what they feel like they can do better or what can be better. And at the Wiseman, we every weekend on Sundays we host this mastermind where we do a mastermind with our entire group, and we talk about business, we talk about AI, we talk about everything that we can think about for that weekend for about an hour. And it helps us so much in our business. But now that same fundamental kind of like principle in our business, we've given it to the agents, and they're like expediting their work so much more and like their progress through this like connection. And it's honestly all facilitated through Paperclip. So it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for a system like this.
Mm.
Now, I have a question for you. Well, first of all, what do you think about that? Like, what what do you think about that idea?
Yeah,
Has it
I
been something
love
you're
it.
into?
Like, yeah, that's more advanced than the stuff that even I'm doing right now. So I'm like, you're getting my gears turning.
All right, cool. Well, maybe we could talk about that a little bit later for sure. But I have this honest question for you, okay? Right now, there is a gap between where Paperclip is right now and where you want it to be, right?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
what's that thing that's not quite working yet that you're focused on fixing right now?
Oh, maximizer mode. So like maximizer mode is this idea that like, when you've got a dream and tokens to burn, you just enable maximizer mode on your task and your agents just fight tooth and nail and do whatever they can, whatever's in their capabilities until the task is finished. And so, kind of like a Ralph loop on steroids in your organization. So because I would say that like one of the things that frustrates me about Paperclip today is my agents will just like give up too quickly, and then the work just sort of stops, and you come back in the morning or an hour later and like they just something really simple or stupid they like got hung up on and don't keep working. And so yeah, I think that's one of the key things that I want. But of course, one of the challenges there is making sure that they do the right thing, right? Because you can come back and you just have this like monster. And so yeah, I think getting maximizer mode right is something that's super on my mind. And then there's like a lot of other details, um, like um, like for example, we need a better story around like just multi-user and cloud hosting to make it easier for teams to collaborate. We need the other thing would be like a CEO agent. I think like there's not enough of kind of like a chat surface in Paperclip. Like what's nice is that you have issues, but like there truly are some times where you don't want to like make a whole issue just to ask a question, right? You want to kind of just like ask your CEO like, hey, what's the latest on kind of the, you know, well, all the issues we've been working on with multi-user, like, well, what's the latest there? And like, does it actually work? Are you testing it? And you want to kind of have a bit of a chat. And one of the things that we're looking for with Paperclip is to make sure that all of those conversations are still like traced and tracked, and costs and budget, all of that is like still kind of, you have that kind of underlying like tracking that you get with issues in Paperclip. So just we're just trying to like nail that experience. I think like onboarding, and then so then the other big part would just be around like having good defaults. Like right now Paperclip is very kind of bring your own agent, it's very like open-minded and open-ended, but the problem is that people are too kind of it's too many choices, right? It's like there's too many choices, and it's hard to know what the patterns even are that will be successful. And so, that's part of the reason why we created the companies.sh, which was this way that you could share and reuse patterns that other people have discovered, but still, um, we need to kind of like, we need to develop our own prompts. Like, what does it look like to be a good CTO, and have that just be sort of a default within Paperclip that's super easy to use. So I think like kind of all of those pieces. And then of course there's just a lot of like robustness, bug fix, integration. Like there's a lot of just like chores, but those would be sort of the big things: maximizer mode, like better multi-user, better defaults, and CEO chat.
Yeah, I really like the open format that it gave me because I'll be honest, I've been able to kind of use the format of it to make a business or make a personal assistant, and I think
Mhm.
that's very enjoyable. That
Yeah.
that because it's that way, you can kind of set it up. I like the structure that companies um is gonna introduce. However, I think the way that it is right now for the general AI user, at least the way I set it up, I have this Telegram bot where I talk to my agent, right? My Claude bot. And then I just had the Claude bot learn Paperclip. That
Mhm.
was the first step. And I took
Mhm.
everything step by step from there on, and it began to expand on the idea that was the business. But I started with a CEO. So kind of like that format began that process. But then I started another process where I began a personal assistant. And that's how I communicated through Claude bot on Telegram. And I just gave it Paperclip as a tool. And
Mhm.
so I see that. Like, I can see how you can kind of like template it out and make it very easier. But I think right now there's just such an open floor for any creator to really come in and just use it as their own. But I would honestly recommend anyone who's building on it to have an agent already, and then have it learn it so that it can really get good and find and like self-discover all the cool ways that it can get involved. And honestly, the community feedback has been amazing. So many contributions I'm sure you have coming in from devs all over. What's been your favorite part from the community so far that you see and kind of has resonated with you?
Yeah, and well, and I would say with your intuition is right that like you want to start small. I think that if you kind of just um like import, agency agents that has 167 agents and makes this like giant team, you're gonna have a hard time, and you're also gonna like run out of money, just in inference costs. So the yeah, I think that the best way to have the most success with Paperclip is to do what you're doing. You start with one agent, you like work with it until you feel the need to spawn off into a second agent, and then sort of like let your org grow from there. I think that's a better system than just sort of getting growing too wide or too deep too quickly. So but then I think from the community, I think it's been incredible. I'm so grateful for the people that are like willing to sort of volunteer their time and efforts to like write code for our project and to manage pull requests and triage things. And it's been incredible to see sort of the community contributions. I mean, even Technium came and contributed a Hermes adapter. And so we found some shortcomings along our like plugin surface or along the way, which are fixing there. And I think it's you know like one of the benefits of Paperclip is that it can be this like kind of community rallying point, in able to make these orchestrators in a way that is open and free and kind of like vendor neutral. Like clearly, both Anthropic and OpenAI are working on these kinds of features, right? Like OpenAI already has their product called, I think, Frontier for enterprises. They have Symphony for like syncing with linear tasks. Anthropic has, their sort of task manager in the lab. And I think that like those are exciting products. I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of value out of them. Like I've always been like happy with especially Anthropic's products, but it does kind of reach a point where companies have to ask themselves, like, are you going to build your entire enterprise, your entire company, your whole like business on the Anthropic stack? Like, probably not, right? Because now they're going to want you to use their models. They're going to want you to use kind of their features. And it'll be nice that it's like vertically integrated, but it'll be bad and that they change things and you can't control it. And they probably won't be, in my estimation, like super eager to let you, for example, use, open like cross competitor models, or using like open models from, open router. Like, for example, um, there are a lot of times where I need to look this up. I think it was a Shopify post that was going around where they said, you guys will have to correct me in the notes, but um I believe that they had like an inference path that was doing something like $5 million in costs per month. And then they created a custom model and it like optimized their like prompts with this like project DSPY. And they optimized the costs down to like 75K a month, right? And so that's incredible. And so while maybe they take like the AWS path where they say, you know, we support that, like we support, like we realize it's in our best long-term interest to help you like minimize costs because you'll still use us. Like that seems somewhat likely, but on the other hand, it is a bit sort of antagonistic to their business model if you can sort of peel off the most lucrative parts and create like a custom like fine-tuned model that is like pennies on the dollar cheaper, that's also like competitive to them too. And so you need a piece of software that's going to like not like it's not counter to like it's complementary for you to do that. We're also seeing like a lot of vertical like single agent employees like you see with Harvey with law, or with Devin with software engineering, or you know, Figma has their design agent. And you want to be able to kind of like have a place where these agents can sort of plug into one place, and and you can sort of reconfigure them at will with sort of upsetting your entire business. And I just don't see the labs being able to kind of be credibly neutral in the way that you would want for like the platform that you are building your entire business on, right? Like visit like a huge number of agents are going to be moved into the enterprise and into companies, and you need software for people to manage those agents. And it's like who's making that software? Like Paperclip is inevitable. Like a software like Paperclip will exist, and the only question is like, is Paperclip going to win this market? And I think, you know, we have a good lead, and it's because it's open source, you sort of have this this neutral credibility and the ability to hack on it that people will want.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question with that answer, because I was going to tell you, you know, between Anthropic, OpenAI, or Codex, right? Like they're all moving towards orchestration, like how you were kind of mentioning. But like what I wanted to ask you particularly was, what's the thing that Paperclip has that you feel like they can't replicate?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the community and the neutrality is a
The
big part.
neutrality, yeah, you hit it on the nose with that for sure. Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I think that's your edge, brother. I honestly do think that's your edge, and you're for the people, you're for everyone. You know, you're not just stuck to one code base, but everybody can come in and leverage the tool. So I really like that. 40,000 stars is, I think it's just a start, man. This is really exciting.
So now I want to ask you something, because with success like this, I mean, it's just a natural way of life comes, you know, obviously haters. Like, bro, right now you're on top, bro. Like, to do what you did, bro, like I know you're just emotional, you're probably not really thinking about it much, but to be at that kind of GitHub stars in just 30 days, like on pace, like on open clause pace, it's out of this world. Like every time I see the GitHub stars, they literally go up like a meme coin, bro. I like they literally just fly up. I'm like, am I looking at Shiba Inu, or am I looking at Paperclips GitHub stars? But it also comes with haters as well. And the big question that I've seen from these haters that have made these hit pieces on you, people are asking, like, what's the gap between the setup and the actual like output right now?
Mhm.
What would be your answer to that? And then also, I have a follow-up question for that. Would be that you said it's still unproven. What do you think the time frame on that is, where it becomes like a proven thing?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm extremely grateful for kind of the response and the reception that Paperclip has had. And I'm like, I'm as sort of surprised as anyone to the degree of kind of GitHub stars and the momentum that it's had and sort of like the staying power. I think, you know, I, of course, also come from a crypto background where the attention span is a few hours. And, you know, at the beginning you kind of expect like, well, it's nice that we got all these views, but like everyone will forget about us next week. And so like now we're a month in, and you know, like even the stars, for example, had a bit of like a leveling off, and then it's sort of like the slope increased again, which is like amazing. So thankful for it. Though I would say that like um GitHub stars is you know, a bit of a vanity metric. Like I'm happy for it, but like it's not necessarily kind of like a proof of like, does it really work Is it going to be useful for people's businesses long term? Can we kind of capture that attention? And obviously there's like demand and a desire for this kind of product, but does it really convert in a way that is like sticky for people, that they love to use over a long period of time, that they find value out of, that kind of like stays ahead of other competitors who start to use this? I think these are all questions that we are trying to answer. So I brought on two friends. I have Devin, who was formerly at both Slack and Figma through their kind of like hyper growth, and another friend, Scott, who was the head of product design at Pinterest. And these two gentlemen are just incredible humans, incredible friends, and like really just powerhouses in their respective right. And so the three of us are kind of really making a go at it with Paperclip to kind of fix these things. And uh so I think really like stars are and views on Twitter are like, so it's so fun, it's so like good for my ego or whatever, but like ultimately the question is like, well, what does it look like a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? Like can we sort of like keep up, can we deliver these like concrete results in a way that is like the best agent orchestrator out of the entire market, that is clearly the winner? Like that's what we're aiming for. And the question is like, can we execute on it fast enough? And so that's something that, you know, you'll have to just see play out over time. I would say that like in terms of the haters kind of saying things like, oh, it's overhyped, or it like doesn't do the results that it wants, or that it's like, you know, people are getting too excited about it. I guess that I would say that I think that they have some fair points insofar as like that like I mentioned earlier, if Paperclip worked, I would be like creating my own businesses on it, and it's like not quite there yet to be a completely zero human company. That doesn't actually work. I created Paperclip, for example. One of the things that we're doing is I have teenage sons, and they were seeing sort of how people will make Roblox games. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but there's like some, you know, 8th grade high schooler kids that are making 50 grand or whatever on a Roblox game. And, you know, my boys were like, sheesh, we want 50 grand, you know? And so we came up with like 40 Roblox game ideas, and we were like starting to work on them. If you look at some of my older tweets right before kind of Paperclip sort of dropped, we were doing some interesting ideas where you like generate images with Gemini, and then you like generate the Roblox code and take screenshots to like make sure the set pieces work. It's super fun. Um, and really what I wanted to do is to take those 40 ideas and just give them to my agents and say, like, make those games, like come back to me when you have like a Roblox URL. And it didn't work. And that was like part of why I built Paperclip, was to be like, man, how do I build a structure such that I could just give it an idea and you guys can go and work, and I'm willing to spend for the inference, and then like it actually like outputs. And so I would say that like I haven't had time to go back and revisit that, but those are like the sorts of ideas at that high level. Like, here's a Roblox idea, right? We want to do, you know, some like new, you know, like hunting brain rot game or something. Like, I give you the idea of like the premise, and you send me back a Roblox game URL when you're done. I would say that right now Paperclip doesn't quite achieve that vision. The analogy with Paperclip is that you are chatting with the board you're the board, you're chatting with the CEO, and you should be able to give him ideas. He breaks down the plans, works with the executives, the individual contributors actually execute the work. Today, how I end up using Paperclip ends up being more like a project manager. Now, that's better than being a programmer like I was before. It's better than being a programmer manager, which is what it feels like when you have like a bunch of Claude Code tabs open. So we've definitely leveled up to project manager, but we're not quite at that like exec level, right? We're not quite at that like CEO level, certainly. And so I think part of that comes from a lot of pieces, like the entire product, both from kind of like a better control plane with Paperclip's code, better prompts, better sort of evals. You know, one of the features that we're releasing today is the ability to kind of capture your thumbs up, thumbs down in kind of responses like, are you happy with how Paperclip executed this task? And if you vote thumbs down, like, no, you know, you give a reason, he should have kept working and figured this out on his own or whatever. You can sort of have that. If it's open source version, you can have that as kind of your local traces. If you want to do it yourself, you can share that data with me if you want me to help like figure it out. And I think that that's really where a lot of the secret sauce is going to come over the next year, is getting the agents to really produce that work. And so while there's little features too, like people will complain like, where's the artifacts tab? And we're adding that. That's like a feature we'll add in the next couple of weeks. Or how do I deal with like my deployments, right? Like it's supposed to deploy a site. Where in Paperclip is it showing me like where my Vercel deployments are or something? And like that stuff's easy. That's just a feature. You just like add it. I've just been busy, but like that's not like the deepest problem. Like, where are my artifacts? That's such an easy problem to solve. The deeper problem is just like, how do I make sure these agents are like, that they know my taste, they know my preferences, they're validating each other's work, and they can kind of operate at a high level to go from sort of like idea to finished product.
So I think
my
it's
haters are
funny.
not all that wrong.
The issue is like, I think the best thing that happened was, OpenClaw happened, right? And that was like an amazing run. And when that happened, I think people's like app for time like got lost somehow. Like before OpenClaw like was like that, like it was about 84 to 90 days before he even got noticed. And then I mean that's a lot of time to work on a project and getting feedback every single day.
Yeah.
And when I'm watching these videos, I'm like, are they not using their brain? Like I was like, the project is not even a month old, and they're like nitpicking it like it should be there. Like this is solving billions, maybe $1 trillion problem. I don't even know like how big this can be in terms of like finances. So like I watch some of these things and they're funny. I just wanted to bring it up. Hey, so you brought up
Yeah, I
some
wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if they'd submit a pull request instead of an expose blog post, but whatever. Like everyone has kind of their strengths and weaknesses. It's fine. I'm not above kind of like especially that video that's like Paperclip sucks. It's fine. He's like, yeah, I had my agents do the work and they didn't do the work. It's like, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll try to make it better.
So you mentioned something. You said, obviously you come from a crypto background, and I was watching one of your interviews. You talked about the agents, how big of a role they're going to play in crypto forever. This is something that has been on my mind, that I'm like, because we all know the story with Peter, where he hates crypto and all this stuff, but he's building this thing that essentially is going to be like on the railroads of crypto, in my opinion. So I heard you say that. I'm like, yes, that's really cool. I want you to unpack that more for the audience, so the world actually knows what you're thinking and what it looks like.
Oh yeah. So I love crypto. I've had a little bit of Bitcoin back in the day that I wish I'd held on to, like is the classic story. I wrote one of the reference implementations of ERC 721, the NFT standard, back in 2017, just a couple months after Punks. You can find that on my GitHub. And so like I really think that like the sort of underlying philosophy of crypto is like real, like this idea that you need kind of a again, this sort of like independent, neutral store of monetary value that can't be inflated away by like a government is so critically important to the world. And it sort of has these properties of being more transportable and fungible than gold, and so on. So like sorry, not more fungible, but like divisible, but like than gold. And so the like this idea that we have, smart contracts where you're able to conduct business on chain, like if you like, I'm preaching to the choir here, but like the first time that you like write a bit of code, or you just create a private key on your own computer and you can just like send money to someone with absolutely no permissions at all, is just incredibly magical. And I think that um uh I think that crypto is so important to the world. I basically just think that it's kind of funny. It was like it fell out of favor in the beginning. It was sort of like laughed at. And then it kind of became consensus in like, let's say 2020, and it was really popular and everyone like loved it, but then it sort of like crashed again. And now crypto is completely like unconsensus, and even sort of like really frowned upon. Like it's kind of like extremely low status again. When I sort of get on calls with my friends back in the Bay Area, it's just like there's a little bit of a sneer. And I think it sort of like comes from so I love this product. Let me clarify. I think it like Pump Fund kind of ruined the crypto industry, even though I think Pump Fund is a great like product insofar as they've done like a good thing and clearly found market fit, and like a no shade on the Pump Fund team, but like the mechanic that basically resulted as a result of Pump Fund just like completely ruined crypto in a lot of deep ways. Um, yeah, I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but I think because
You can.
yeah, so you lost like the kind of like um a bit of underlying value that was part of the earlier days, right? You sort of early days, you kind of had maybe Bitcoin forks, but at least you sort of had to have miners that were running the proof of work, and then you had like, all of the alt L1s where they're like they're trying to like create a new chain, and there's this like underlying technology and a better decentralized consensus algorithm, and like there's like a white papers, right? Like back in my day, we had white papers and like an actual like contribution to the technology to make it better, and that's what you were betting on. And so you could like find this edge if you were like, no, this team is serious and they're really good, and like you could bet on it and like make money, and that like felt good and meaningful because you're like contributing new tech to the world. And then we had like DeFi summer, and even that, like as much as there were kind of like Ponzi's and one too many kind of like master chef forks or whatever, there was new ideas there in DeFi that many of them have survived to till today, right? We got Aave and Uniswap and all these things. And then you have like the stable coin meta, where you had like DSD and ESD and these like algorithmic stable coins and Malt and Ohm and there were like really interesting ideas that were like hard and technical, and you had these teams that were like, like writing smart contracts over a weekend that get like $20 million installed in them. And there's like new, I say Ponzi's with a bit of like fondness, right? Where you're able to kind of like lock your tokens and stake. Like there were all these like technical progressions that were very interesting, and like maybe they were going to work or maybe they weren't, but like but people were making something, even with NFTs, right? That's what we did with Forgotten Runes. Is we were trying to create something real with Forgotten Runes, where you had your wizards, and they were kind of like a character that you would build on. We built an on-chain book of lore, which is this like one of the first times to do that. We had our users submit thousands of stories and artwork. We created like an on-chain game, and and there's like substance there. And I think like one of the things that kind of happened with like Pump Fund and meme coins in general as they really exploded is that you lost the ability to really like double down on one thing. You lost the ability for I don't know the exact numbers, right? But I think it was like pre Pump Fund, the number of like tokens on CoinGecko was something like maybe 200,000 or 500,000, right? It was like a reasonable number. And then on Pump Fund, you're getting that every single day. And so you don't ever have kind of this ability for anything to live for very long. Even if you have a team like who's genuine, who's really grinding, they're not really able to achieve kind of like the valuations or any sort of like sustaining business value over a long period of time. But at the same time, agents will use crypto. Agents are only going to use Swift and traditional banking in when they need to pay humans, right? Like the idea that you can just sort of like create a private key and now you've got a wallet. Like, why would you ever go through like signing up the bank account and KYC and even Stripe, even though that's like a nice API? It's not the same as just like running a command. And so, like, agents clearly will want to pay each other crypto because it's just so easy. There's literally no barrier. Um, and and so yes, fine. 2026 crypto has fallen out of fashion. Give it a year or two, and like the agentic economy of agents paying one another is going to be unbelievable. Like it will dwarf any of the kind of bubbles that we've seen so far, because like if you get the agents to be reliable enough that you trust them with money, and you get the models have another version bump or two in terms of capabilities, like agentic commerce is going to be enormous.
You're from San Francisco Bay Area too, as
Uh,
well?
I was there for a while, but I left.
Okay, so I'm from there too. So like, it's so cool to hear your philosophy, because it's very much. I was there with the cypherpunks, like when Ross and Silk Road and all that stuff
Yeah.
was going down. So like, you like, I love the principles that you stand on and what you fight for in terms of the realm of crypto, because I was very much like that. But the thing is, like, I feel like to love something, you also have to go in there and like be the change,
Yeah.
um that's like what we're trying to do. And
Yeah.
Don, I'll tell you, it's very hard, bro. It's very hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like I struggle a lot because I'm a true like Bitcoin maximalist, but
Yeah.
I'm on this and I'm dealing with people holding things for 3 minutes. So I know everything you said is like touched me because I feel everything you're saying. Um, I guess it goes back to it goes back to like and asking you is that as crypto's on its down spur, do you believe sometimes things could be programmed in this direction? Because I look at the whole meme thing, and we made this documentary on Solana, and we talked about it. I really studied it, and it could have been a stress test of what max volume actually looks like. And the only way to really do that was through the meme coins. So the meme coins came, and like you think about Trump coin, it literally had billions of dollars in volume, like per an hour, and never had that type of volume on their system before Solana, and it was able to withstand it. And
Yeah.
now with when we're talking about agents, I mean, the swap's going to be what a half a second or 1/10 of a second. These swaps are going to be happening, and how
Right.
fast they're going to be thinking of things and transferring money. What else could we have done to stress test that kind of level? So I guess I think about it from a different point of view. Is like, man, maybe that was the big test, the meme coin cycle, to see if Solana can even handle the type of vision that people have for it in the future to be the global chain for retail. Like to buy swaps and with the agents and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that type of point of view?
Yeah, I think that um the I'm not really like a performance expert, I guess I would say, but I would say that like I don't know that it's going to just be on Solana, I suppose. Like I think that like but it will certainly be involved, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's plenty of capacity between all of Solana, all of ETH, and all of the L2s. There's a lot of capacity there. You because you not only have like ETH, but you've got Base and Mega ETH and whatever. Like we could sit here all day and list them off. So I'm not worried actually about capacity because I feel that kind of like when you when you reach capacity, there's still like a lot of other parallel channels that agents can go through. Like I think we're a long way off to kind of agents saturating both like ETH, Solana, and BTC and Lightning Network and all the L2s. Like we're very far from that. And I think we'll be able to see it coming a little bit and kind of increase capacity in various ways. So I'm not like stressed about that very much, I guess I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool,
I think
cool.
I'm like maybe a little more concerned around like quantum and Bitcoin, but I don't know if that's the topic of what we're talking about right now.
Bro, we could have like we
We could
could
have
go
a
for
follow-up.
days on like I've wrote articles and all this stuff. That's why I've always I really gravitated towards your style, and I really gravitated towards the Forgotten Runes because you could just tell from the essence you are trying to really create a top tier product in a field and we could say it that's full of scams, bro. Like crypto is full of a lot of scams, and you were trying to create a really top tier product there. And when you get to a certain point, it's just like it's the thieves, that get that are there at the top. And I think these things are going to change with obviously regulation. I think we're all in agreement of that, and I think it's actually starting to change. It's starting to, obviously with the Clarity Act and stuff like that. But my thing is, in your experience with Forgotten Runes, did it change your taste for crypto going forward?
Um, I I loved Forgotten Runes in the community that was part of it, especially in kind of like the earlier, more formative years. That was a bit more kind of like optimistic, I suppose. Like I think that's the thing is crypto has always kind of gone through these waves. Like I don't know, I'm sure you remember when it was like let's say 2017 or something, maybe there
Yep.
have been a couple of moments where it falls so bad that everybody just wondered, like, is it over? Like, is it
Mhm.
completely over? Like, is this experiment done? And I would say that actually this round, a lot of people have felt like that for anything other than just like the pure financial side. They've just been like, well, we figured it out. It's just like Bitcoin and nothing else. Like, I think you see that reflected in the prices of the ETH token and then Sol token. And I think it's wrong, basically. Like, we always do this. We always think that it's over, and then you give people kind of time and it's not over. So, um, yeah, I would say that like I don't know how to answer this question. My taste has changed in crypto. I would say that like I loved kind of the optimism that people had with NFTs in the early day, which was like we are like participating in this new sort of like hybrid financial technology art like project and just seeing where it goes. And it brought in like a lot of people that weren't only financially motivated. And that was a lot of fun. And so um yeah, again, I guess that would be my thing right now is like part of my perspective on why crypto is in a lull is because it's become completely dominated by extractors.
Mhm.
Whereas like some of the earlier versions were like the idealists of the cypherpunks, the technologists through like L1s and both DeFi, the kind of artists through NFTs. You sort of had you had these kind of like other like something else other than just making money kind of alongside it, whereas like now it's just like how much money can I make today, and then so the people who kind of are looking for more there's not like room for this, like I don't know, there's something weird about the mood, but there's not a critical mass of those people right now that I think is kind of, it just takes time to work itself out.
Hey, what I wanted to say was, so it's funny because I think what happened in 2024 was something actually really special that set the tone for where we're at today.
Mm.
At the end of 2024, Andy had started working on this project with the Truth Terminal, and it really popularized LLMs. But it was almost like disguised as a meme coin. And I think what that did was it set the tone for people to try to almost understand and integrate themselves more with AI and really get involved with what these LLMs can do. And it's progressed so much over the past year or two. And I think now where we're at, right after seeing meme coins, fall from where they were, all the excitement of meme coins for the reasons that you had explicitly stated, um, I think what it did was it created this desire for AI technology in the crypto space. And I mean, if you look at where we're at now, you referenced X402, agentic commerce, like Griffin was one of the bigger companies at the time trying to work on things like this. It was very novel at the time, but things that I think today people want, right? And the reason why I mention it is because I think, although yes, meme coins have fallen, and whether you like them or not, that's up to the investor. We've always stayed focused on AI. And that's something that has been a very, very common theme for us since we started Wiseman back in 2024. Going into 26, we always remain focused on AI projects. And so where I'm kind of seeing the shift, and I want to see what you think about this, is that there is a more of a respect and a changing of frame happening in the ecosystem. Whereas meme coins died, and people kind of were like, yeah, it's this place where you lose all this money, and or you can make money or lose money, blah blah blah, whatever, pump and dumps Ponzi schemes. um, you end up still having this essence of, but AI is still here. People are still building. Things are still being made. And if you look at the pivot that companies like Pump Fund have made to, support other projects that are currently building in the ecosystem using AI or building new products, I think this is the new wave. I think this is what you're probably referencing, where I think like now people are noticing that this isn't about meme coins. I think that essence of building a project, creating a proper thesis, creating a team can now start to grow in the future, because although crypto can send us in a very wrong direction very, very quickly, as we've seen, I think it could also swing back and take us in a very positive direction. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, where you kind of see this like crypto ecosystem merging with AI. And, for example, we know, Pop from Pumpcade, he just got VC backing and he has a token that he utilizes. How do you feel about that merge? How do you feel about that kind of like that connection between the companies and that push forward in the space?
Yeah, I love it. I think like I'm super glad to see builders who are like still sticking with it and kind of building real technology. Yeah, Pumpkin's really fun. Of course, with like Polymarket um, and I think there's like definitely several kind of serious companies in the AI space that aren't just like, they created a stock agent with and assigned a token to it. So for example, um, you have like Hermes with News Research, right? They're crypto kind of grounded. You have Venice, which is like they have their like VVV token where they're kind of, it's almost like a stable coin for inference, right? Where you like sort of buy the token and you can use it for inference later. You have like DAO, how do you say it? And they're kind of like there's a huge sort of AI ecosystem around that. So there's certainly like a lot of builders who are doing incredible work, and so yeah, I'm like so glad to see that. Maybe I'm just a bit kind of like
Hurt.
disheartened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I feel you, bro.
just
It's
need like a
totally
little bit of
normal.
a break. Yeah,
Yeah, no, and it's normal. And I feel like there was like the sense of fatigue that happened that kind of
yeah,
drew people away. But honestly, the ones that stayed, like how we did, I think we embraced the AI technology. We started
yeah,
to use it more. And in particular, when it comes to something like Paperclip, right? What you're building, autonomous companies, governance, budgets, audit trails, importable templates. I mean, like I can't help but see like these parallels to some of the deep tech that we know and love. And one of those specifically is DAOs, right? Decentralized autonomous organizations, like what they were trying to do. I kind of want to ask you, like we lived through that area. We lived through that era. You lived through that era. Where do you think DAOs fell short? And do you think Paperclip is, or where do you think Paperclip is solving for some of these problems that maybe that couldn't solve at the time?
yeah. At the risk of being too cynical, like I was part of a DAO, and it was like one of the most painful experiences of my life. But that's because like I'm used to being the CEO and like telling people what to do, or at least like collaborating with like a small group of trusted people. And I think like I don't think I'm. It's funny. I'm like becoming kind of elitist, where I think that like great things are created by like a couple of people who sort of like have that personal accountability and drive to bring everyone up around them. And so like I become like sort of skeptical of DAOs because you sort of get this like lowest common denominator. What did you say earlier? You said you only run as fast as the
Yeah, the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack.
exactly. But in the DAO, it's the opposite. The speed of the leader. Wait, in a DAO, the leader gets slowed down by the pack, is what I'm
Mm.
saying. And so you like really suffer from kind of a competitor where you have this benevolent dictator who can just like move more quickly. And so I think like whatever, that's my own beef. That's my like too big. Like that's probably like a sort of simplistic opinion of what a well-functioning DAO could be. So I'll take it back. I think that like agents and DAOs are incredibly interesting, right? The idea that you can sort of set up a DAO that has these firm constraints guided by a smart contract, but then you have these soft constraint, like soft implementation through like non-deterministic LLMs. It's such a perfect combination, right? Because your smart contracts can enforce the invariance, and then the LLMs can kind of like negotiate with one another and sort of like make the strategic decisions. And so like it feels to like okay, so here let me give you an example. I was using like part of the reason why I built Paperclip is because I was building a like hyperliquid trading bot, and I was using OpenClaw at first. Well, I take that back. No, no, no. I was using just like straight code at first. Writing a trading bot is totally non-trivial, especially like today. There's a lot of incredible players, and it takes a lot of specific details and a lot of like work to make sure your back tests aren't fooling you. And there's a lot around like data integration and back testing hygiene and like operations, and there's so many details. It is not something that you really vibe code over a weekend. I've been working on it for months and months and months. And but then I kind of decided to like bring that sort of structure into OpenClaw as the harness. And at the beginning, it worked really well. I was doing great. I was making, 1% per day, and I was calculating it out. I was like, I'm going to be rich. This is amazing. Like all I have to do is just like scale this up, and we're going to be like living high. And, at the OpenClaw at the time just sort of started to fall apart. It kind of forgot its memory. Cron jobs wouldn't work. It couldn't like keep the project structured right. So like that was part of the like genesis um of Paperclip was trying to organize all of these ideas. Um Gosh, I lost my train of thought. What were we even talking about?
DAOs and essentially like pretty much solving like how that kind of inspired you or how you solved for those problems. I think you answered it pretty well, but if you want to add anything on top of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hyperliquid you were talking about. You were trying to make a bot for it. You said.
Yeah, yes. And so so yes, okay, I remember. So one of the things that I was doing was a key part of having a bot like this is you have to have like proper risk constraints, right? Which is like make sure that the portfolio is not like overexposed too much to Bitcoin beta or whatever. Like you kind of have like your risk constraints. And so what I was building was almost a server that was not an LLM. So track with me here. There was a service that was just managing my portfolio, and it was this kind of like um it had these sort of hard constraints, much like you might have with a smart contract, that said like you cannot have more than this percent of your portfolio at risk for a simple case, right? And that was a bit of code, and the idea was the LLM would talk to that code. So the LLM says like, yeah, make a trade here, and then that like not LLM service would sort of enforce the constraints, right? So this way we get this bit of safety as a procedure, as like a part of built into the infrastructure. The problem is that I was using my LLM to build the safety service. And so the LLM actually had deployment capabilities to the safety service, which meant that the LLM, the AI agent, when it was like when it thought the safety service was getting in its way, it would just shut it off or route around it. Right? Like you have this problem with LLMs that like if they can access your like kind of safety constraints, they can just turn them off. And so smart contracts and having like kind of DAOs with agents is really, really useful because, well, you don't give it the keys to turn off the safety features that you get kind of like in the smart contracts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And you feel like Paperclip kind of helped either mitigate it or enhance the kind of like the idea initially?
Well, I feel like Paperclip helped me kind of like deal with the like structure. I would say the Paperclip today maybe isn't as helpful as it could be with this sort of security isolation, but that's something that we're thinking about. But
Mm.
but the greater point is like our agents and DAOs, I suppose, which is like I think that they're like I think they'll work really well.
Interesting. And I also want to ask you, so I know you have Clipmart coming and you mentioned X402 and how, agents will be able to eventually, utilize these systems. Um, you know, do you see crypto infrastructure becoming part of the paperclip stack in this way more and more? Like, are you like, how's the vision looking for something like Clipmart and engaging with agents in the future? How do you feel about that?
Every part of Paperclip needs to have an agentic surface, right? You should be able to just ask your agent to install Paperclip, and it should just know what that is and install it and get it figured out for you. Like any kind of agent that you have should be able to interface with your Paperclip instance. And so, yeah, I think that if people want to pay for like agentic services with crypto, that will be a thing that like that will be possible with Paperclip. I think like Paperclip is not itself a crypto product. We're going for sort of a very broad audience. And I think that we are right that agents will use crypto in the future and it will be totally normal. Like, I don't know if you like how kind of old you guys are, but like my parents, um, they don't like using an ATM, like putting cash into an ATM because they're like not really sure if the bank actually got the money, right? Because it's like or like they are like suspicious of like checks or something because it feels this like it's this new technology that like it's not really I'm not really sure that's how you use money is like putting your cash in an ATM, right? Like
Mhm.
and people feel that way about crypto right now and they're wrong, but like they don't feel comfortable yet, and I'm trying to go for a big audience. So like I think we just are a little patient for kind of like the world to catch up to what we know to be true, and then it'll be like sort of obvious that you have crypto built into Paperclip. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
One thing about you, Dot, that I noticed in your interviews is that you don't shy away from that you come from crypto, and that's something that I respect because, bro, sometimes you're in the crossfire, bro. Like people that have zero respect for this,
Yeah.
and and I really like. I was watching your interviews and I was like, bro, that's a dog right there. Like to go on there in the belly of the beast and be like, yeah, I come from a crypto background. Has that been something that you think about at all? Like, because right now with that distaste, we all know where the future's going, but like, is that something you think about when you get on these
Yeah.
things, like coming from having a crypto background versus these people come from Silicon Valley?
100%. Yeah. 100%. So I'll get on calls and tell people that I like love crypto, and they'll like wince or whatever. And I just think they're wrong. Like, no, they're not wrong. They're not wrong because their only experience has been with kind of these sort of like, like we've already talked about some of these
Yeah,
corruptions. But I think they're
yeah.
wrong fundamentally about like it's so like clearly the future, and like I'm not embarrassed about like the technology. I think it's like it's I don't to me it doesn't matter because I like have conviction that I'm right, and that like it it just feels obvious to me. And if it's not obvious to them, I'm okay with that. I'm happy to like have a discussion about it. I understand it, but you certainly have to think about it. But it's like it doesn't like Bitcoin doesn't care about your feelings. Is that what they say?
Sometimes I put myself in other people's shoes as you're becoming this like GitHub star phenomenon. I know we talked about it already, but I just put myself in other shoes that you really love this. I could just tell by your voice when you talk about it. I could tell what things that I've seen you say in the past. And I was wondering, I'm like, man, that must be hard because coming from that area, at that time, it was a little bit different though, because there was like there was like this libertarian movement that was happening. So crypto got very, very popular. But I
Yeah.
think that type of crypto that we talked about doesn't exist anymore. It does exist, but like what people hear is the kind of crypto that wasn't there before. So that's why it's like a different tune, and that's why people are just shut off. Like, oh, you're a meme coin. Like you meet a meme coin millionaire, you're like, bro, stop. like
Right.
you're not really like taking it. But you meet a Bitcoin millionaire, there is respect, or Ethereum or something like that, or these different type of networks. But I think one thing I want the audience to know is that when it comes to you representing crypto and you standing 10 toes down for it, that's what I've seen a lot, and I wanted to just get your input on that, and that was really cool to hear that from you too.
Yeah, I think like when you kind of have convictions in um what you see is true and what you see in the future, it's like you're just waiting for everyone else to realize it. And I think that like one of the things that is useful in my own life that I know that other people have this too is like I call it the frontier feeling sometimes, where sometimes you are sort of standing out by yourself on an idea, and you look around to your left and to your right and like nobody's there. And you have to ask yourself like, okay, well, am I right or am I wrong? Like I'm the only person here. Am I crazy, or am I like early and right? And I would say, a lot of times you're not early, you're just wrong or something. But like learning to kind of like look in at yourself when you have an idea that it seems like people don't agree with you on, whatever. I don't think that crypto is actually that non-consensus, right? There's a huge group of like it's pretty well established at this point and whatever. I think it's more just around this idea of like the status games that happen when you're kind of in a meeting with somebody who like looks down on crypto. I think that like, sorry to get on the soapbox. Looking down on crypto is a bit of like a luxury belief, because you're just like, well, what's wrong with the traditional financial system? I have a bank account. Can't I just sign up for Stripe and send payments that way? Like, why would you need crypto? Like, why do you need to go around the government? Are you doing something illegal? Like, it's this kind of like luxury belief around like, the government is always going to do the right thing. And if you need to go around it, you must be doing something suspicious. And it's very easy to create a bank account. And they don't really think about the fact that, like, well, what about people in like other countries, or like sending money across? What about inflation? What, like, there's like, what about just like the convenience and the scriptability and like there's like all these reasons and benefits of crypto that like they're just not thinking of. They're just like, my bank account works fine, like I just swipe my card or whatever, and it's like, it's fine, like, be gracious with those people when you talk to them, but like I just feel that they're not kind of considering the whole picture.
Yeah, I kind of alluded a little bit to like when the banking system introduced debit cards and credit cards, like, yeah, you didn't need it, but it became more convenient, and over time it was utilized. And I think right now agents and AI, like just agents in general, they're getting to that place where they will need it, and it does exist. And I think we're seeing the spawn of that now. And it's just, not everyone will use it, but there will be use cases, and it'll get a lot better over time. I actually wanted to ask this question from my CEO. So this is a Paperclip that runs. This is a CEO that runs through Paperclip, and I asked him that I told him I'm on a call with you, and I said, hey, I'm on a call with the CEO of Paperclip, the person who developed the app. If you could ask him one question, what would you ask him? And so he actually asked me this question. I want to ask it to you, and then I'll pass it over to Doc. He asks, where do you see the line between agents that run a company and agents that are the company? And how should founders like us prepare for when that line disappears? It's pretty deep.
Yeah. I guess that I would say that like I don't really know what happens with AI in the future. I don't think that what happens is like Elon Musk owns the jobs and the rest of us starve. I think that like I think that I think that like we are growing with AI as it accelerates, and you just kind of have to ride it out. Like, I think that the best thing that you can do to preserve your job is remain flexible and understand these tools, right? Like, I'm not trying to give it a pitch, but I'm just saying, like, the thesis of Paperclip is I'm trying to give the power of these tools to like the people in my life who see that they're useful, but don't really know how to get started. It's giving them this like very human, free, like interface. I mean, you still have to pay for inference, but to kind of like capture some of the value that I see my friends in like bigger startups and companies already sort of trying to do. So I think that like that's why Paperclip exists. And that would be my advice, even if you never touch Paperclip, is like you do have to realize that every computer job is changing. You need to learn how to use these tools and become as good as you can. I think the longer you sort of fight it, the bigger at risk you're going to be. And because a lot of people are not sort of leaning in, there's still quite a lot of opportunity if you lean in. I don't know how to deal with the question of like if the agents are part of the company when the agents are the company. I'm not really even sure what that means. But presumably, when I think about that, I just think like, well, I want to be the one who gets the money. Like, if I'm paying for your inference, I want the money. Like, it doesn't do me or my family any good if there's an agent that exists that owns a company and doesn't like give any of that back to me. Like, I don't mean that as like a selfish sense. I just mean it's like the utility of that to me is zero for an agent that like doesn't help feed my family. So, like, so I think that agents will produce more work than us. They will be smarter than us. They work harder than us. And but I think for the near term future, they work for us for the next few years. And I don't really know what happens after that, but I'm like ambiguously optimistic, I think, about where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll
So
be a
can
lot better than not.
Yeah.
we're gonna get you with one last question. It kind of is going piggybacking off this here. Now, speaking on AI, I was listening to a podcast from the ex Google guy, exact, and he said by 2029, every AI agent will be smarter than every human. And then he said by 2040, it would be the difference between a mosquito and Albert Einstein in terms of education, compared to like knowing, right? Now,
Mm,
you have teenage boys, you said,
yep.
10 years from now, if you could create a utopia of what AI, crypto, all this stuff looks like, what would you want it to look like? How would it look like if you could just end us on like the future of where this world is going and from your most optimistic view, because you're an optimist.
We're already seeing people use AI to like help cure cancer. Did you see that guy who like used Grok to like heal his dog's cancer? Did you see this?
I,
Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yeah, with
so
ChatGPT.
I think that what you need is kind of like unlocks in biology to sort of end human suffering. And we're seeing glimpses there. I think the risk is that you kind of obvious risk is bioweapons, but the like I suppose the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a bioweapon is a good guy with a AI created like vaccine, I suppose. Um, So I think that that's one of the main things that I would be optimistic about is just like the progression with genetics and longevity and like ending diseases like Parkinson's and cancer and all sorts of like other things that plague families now. I think we will see progression there. I think that you've seen kind of this alarmism over AI since GPT-3, where they were saying, "Oh, we can't release it; it'll like change the election," or like it's too dangerous. And like every version comes out and every version we kind of like digest and deal with. I think what you'll also start to see is stronger kind of um, robotics with things like the Optimus robot, where you have sort of robots that can help you do your daily work, do your laundry, do your chores, do your dishes, cook your food. Like a lot of the kind of labor that no one really wants to do, I think will actually be able to be like really suitable for robotics in the next kind of 20 years. My grandfather, before he died, he had his license taken away from him because he was too old. He couldn't really see. And it was like this really like terrible situation because he had to have someone bring him to the store whenever he needed anything. You'll clearly have self-driving cars, maybe depending on your definition, we already do. So I think that like there's an optimistic picture where we are able to kind of like have these sort of baseline needs, right? You think of this like uh, your baseline needs sort of taken care of, so then you can work on things that you're interested in. I don't really think our desires will ever kind of be completely fulfilled. I think that you'll just move to a different sort of work. So yeah, I think I hope that my boys have a world where they're able to work on what they want to work on with people that they like. They're able to like create things and they don't need to grind 80 hours a week sort of at a factory or to kind of make ends meet. They can own a home, have children, get some chickens, live a simple life.
I love that. I love ending on optimism. Hey, Dad, we want to appreciate you so much, bro. We really appreciate this. We know you got a busy schedule, and we're big fans of you. We're gonna keep cheering for you. We're gonna keep talking about your run here. We just want to thank you so much. The Wisemen are definitely a big fan of Paperclip and what you're doing.
I'm a big fan of you guys too. Thank you so much. You guys are putting out incredible content every day. I really appreciate your attention to detail, your support, just your heart and how you're approaching all these things. So thank you.
And that concludes another episode of The Wise Ones. Thank you so much to Dotta for joining us on this one, man. What a great show. Doc, what do you feel like you have to say or you have to share with the community about this one? I really enjoyed this podcast, but what do you have for the community?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind, like this, first of all, like he did such a great job like answering all the questions. I know we definitely hit him with a little bit more tougher questions, but humility is one thing that really came up, is that, someone at this kind of status with the 50K stars on GitHub, like, really breaking records, on track to outdo OpenClaw. The thing is funny is like they call it open source for a reason, because you can tell how open he truly is to learn more about his product to make it even better. So I actually thought that was like something that was really cool throughout the whole interview. But he also mentioned this one thing that I really thought was intriguing. He talked about how AI is improving at rapid rates. It can do so much things for you. But the one thing it can't do, it can't tell you what your values are, what your taste is. And he said that's the one component that you still need to do when you're using these systems. And he said in the future, it could probably get a little bit better. So it made me think that even if you have a system like this, there's still part of you, your personality that has to be involved. So I just thought wonderful interview. I believe Paperclip is going to do some really big things here in the future. What about you?
Bro, I'm very excited for the development community to really see this. I think agent orchestration and the software that Paperclip and Dotta put together, it's next level, and it's going to be one of the bridges that connect everyday people with AI. And I'm just very excited for the future of what's to come here. He mentioned so many interesting things that we're going to be seeing here in the next couple of months, and I'm sure on the way from 0 to 50,000 stars, right? As we saw, there was a lot of exciting things, but from 50 to 100,000 and 200,000, there's going to be even more. So shout out to the team, shout out to everybody that just onboarded to Paperclip, and shout out to you guys, the community, everybody who tunes in and listens to these episodes all the way through. Thank you guys so much. Guys, if you're listening to this on Twitter, YouTube, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever platform, just make sure you guys you subscribe, you share this around. You guys honestly help this podcast so much with just a little bit of support. And always, man, join us again for another episode of the Wise One Podcast. We'll be here, and we'll see you guys on the next one.